So I had this moment the other day that I'm a little embarrassed to admit.
Oh, yeah.
I was leaving the house, patting my pockets, get keys, wallet, and then I just froze. Absolute panic. My heart rate spiked. My palms got all sweaty. I honestly thought I'd lost something vital, like a passport or maybe a child.
Right.
It was my phone.
That is an intense reaction, isn't it? But you are, believe me, not alone in that.
It felt so physical.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't just missing a tool. I felt like I was missing a part of my body. It was this really weird sensation of being, physically incomplete.
That is the perfect way to start, because the source material we're diving into today actually uses that exact metaphor. It describes the smartphone not as just a gadget, but as a second limb.
Second limb. That is exactly what it feels like. But here's the thing, and this is where I want to bring you, the listener. And it's not just about holding the device.
Right.
It's what happens when we unlock it. I mean, have you ever picked up that second limb with the best intentions?
Yeah.
You're thinking, okay, I'm just going to check the headlines for 2 minutes, stay informed.
This famous quick check.
Right, the quick check. And then you look up, and somehow an hour has just evaporated. Your neck's stiff, your eyes are dry, and emotionally, you just feel heavy.
Yeah.
Maybe anxious, maybe angry, or just totally exhausted. You went in for information, and you came out feeling like you went 12 rounds in a boxing ring.
That is the classic trap. And honestly, it's become the defining experience of our digital age. You go looking for updates, but you end up just stuck in this cycle of emotional exhaustion.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating article by Nitya Rao for Minute Media. It's called The Psychology Behind Doomscrolling and How to Avoid It.
Such a necessary topic right now.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's pretty simple, but it's vital for our sanity. We need to figure out why on earth we do this to ourselves. Why is the human brain hardwired to fixate on disaster? And crucially, how do we get our time and our mental health back without, throwing our phones in the river and going to live in a cave?
Right. That's the balance we're all looking for. We want to be informed, not traumatized. And I think to really understand the solution, we have to start by just nailing down the definition. Because doom scrolling, it isn't just reading the news.
Right. There's a nuance there. It's not just catching up.
Exactly. Nitya Rao defines it very specifically in the text. Doom scrolling is spending excessive time scrolling through content that specifically fuels sadness, anxiety, or anger.
It's that word, excessive. And the emotional result, staying informed feels like it has an endpoint. You get the facts, you move on. Doom scrolling feels infinite.
It does. And the context here is so interesting because, as the article points out, bad news isn't a modern invention. I mean, humans have always dealt with bad news. Plagues, wars, famine.
But carrying a 24-hour, constantly updating broadcast of every tragedy on Earth in your pocket?
Yeah.
That part's new.
Precisely. The term doom scrolling itself, it's a baby. It didn't really enter our vocabulary until 2020.
The pandemic.
The height of the lockdowns. I mean, think back to that time. We had this widespread, terrifying uncertainty. People were physically stuck at home, isolated, and the phone became the only lifeline to the outside world.
I remember that so vividly. You felt like if you put the phone down, you might miss the one piece of information that would keep you safe. It felt irresponsible not to scroll.
And that created a neural pathway. We trained our brains to see the device as a threat monitor. But here's the kicker. Even though the lockdowns ended, the habit stuck. We are still scrolling like we're in crisis mode.
Which brings us to the core question, right? If nobody actually enjoys feeling anxious or sad, why can't we look away? If I touch a hot stove, I pull my hand back. It hurts. My body knows. Pain equals stop. But with a terrible headline that hurts my brain, I don't stop. I scroll down to find another one. Why?
It's a great question, and the answer is we're not broken, we're surviving. This is where the source introduces a concept called negativity bias. And I love this because it stops us from beating ourselves up about it.
So this isn't a character flaw? I'm not just a glutton for punishment?
Not at all. It's evolutionary wiring. To understand doom scrolling, you have to look at the brain not as a modern computer designed for happiness, but as a survival tool built for a very different world.
Okay, let's unpack that. We're going back to our ancestors.
We're talking hunter-gatherer days. So imagine you're one of them, walking through the savannah. You've got two things in front of you. A bush with some delicious-looking berries and a rustling in the tall grass that might be a tiger.
Okay. Berries and tigers.
Which one does your brain prioritize?
The tiger. 100% the tiger. Because if I miss the berries, I skip lunch. I'm hungry, but I'm alive. If I miss the tiger, I am lunch.
Exactly. The cost of missing a threat is death. The cost of missing a positive thing is just a missed opportunity. So, over millions of years, the human brain evolved to be hypersensitive to threats. We are the descendants of the paranoid ones.
So our negativity bias is basically the brain's antivirus software, just constantly scanning for threats. It's a feature, not a bug.
That's a great way to put it. It is a survival mechanism. The problem, as Nicky Rao points out, is that this mechanism is still running the show today. But the danger isn't a predator anymore. It's a scary headline about the economy.
But my body doesn't know the difference.
No. Biologically, the stress response is almost identical. The source points to the limbic system and specifically the amygdala.
The amygdala, that's the brain's alarm bell.
It's the lookout tower. It keeps us vigilant. When you see that upsetting content, the amygdala just lights up. It screams, pay attention, threat, threat, and it dumps cortisol and adrenaline into your system.
And normally, with a tiger, you'd either fight it or run away, and the stress cycle would end. You'd burn off that energy.
Right. You had to spend the energy and get to safety. But with doom scrolling, you're sitting on your couch. And unlike the tiger, which eventually leaves, the news feed is infinite.
It never runs out of tigers.
Never. So you end up in this state of chronic, low-grade emergency. The vigilance response never switches off. You're just marinating in stress hormones.
That's actually terrifying. But it gets worse, doesn't it? Because it's not just our biology acting in a vacuum. There's the other player in this game, the algorithm.
The collision, yes. This is where the why gets really interesting. The article describes what I like to call the algorithmic trap.
Because the app isn't just a neutral library,
Okay.
right? It's not just sitting there waiting for you. It's active. It has an agenda.
It's highly active. Think about the feedback loop. You see something upsetting, your negativity bias kicks in. Oh no, threat. So you click on it.
Yeah.
Or you just hover for a couple seconds longer.
And the algorithm is watching that. It's tracking where my thumb stops.
It's watching everything. But, and this is so key, it doesn't have a moral compass. It doesn't know you're stressed. It only knows one thing: engagement.
It sees me staring at the disaster and thinks, the user's interested in disasters. Let's give them more.
Precisely. It interprets your anxiety-driven attention as interest. So it serves you more of that content. You click again, the system reinforces itself. It's this perfect storm of ancient biology looking for threats, and modern tech serving us threats to sell ads.
We're basically caught in a loop where our own survival instincts are being exploited. That makes so much sense why it's so hard to just stop. It's not willpower. It's biology versus a supercomputer.
It really is. It exploits a vulnerability in our operating system.
So we know why we do it. But I want to talk about the cost, because the article makes a really strong point that this isn't just about wasting time. This is different. There's a real toll here.
Absolutely. The source describes something called the filter effect. And I think this is so profound because it speaks to how we start to perceive reality itself.
How does that work?
Well, repeated exposure to negative content, it acts like a literal filter. If 90% of what you consume is angry or catastrophic, your brain starts to assume that 90% of the world is angry and catastrophic.
It skews the data set. It's like wearing dirty glasses. Everything you look at seems grim, even if it's just a sunny day.
Exactly. You start by wanting to stay informed, but that quickly morphs into this generalized anxiety, this frustration, this helplessness. You start to feel like nothing can be fixed.
And it's not just in our heads. The article lists some physical symptoms that really surprise me. I mean, I expect the anxiety, but the physical side effects are serious.
It's that chronic stress response. The source explicitly mentions sleep disruption, which is huge. I mean, the blue light doesn't help, but the cortisol spike is the real killer. You can't sleep when your brain thinks a predator is nearby.
And muscle tension. I feel this one personally.
Yes. Your muscles tense up to run from the tiger. If you don't run, that tension just sits there. It creates neck pain, headaches, jaw clenching.
The article even mentions high blood pressure.
Your body is physically bracing for a fight that is only happening on a 6-inch screen. That takes a massive physiological toll.
And while you're bracing for that digital fight, you aren't doing other things. The article calls this lifestyle displacement.
This is the opportunity cost. It crowds out the good stuff. If you're doom scrolling for 2 hours, you aren't exercising, you aren't outdoors, you aren't talking to friends.
You aren't sleeping.
You aren't sleeping. The source explicitly mentions a reduction in life satisfaction and an intensification of dread. It's a heavy price.
There's one more psychological quirk the article mentions that I really want to touch on before we get to solutions. We started with the second limb idea, but they also talk about the phantom phone sensation.
Oh, that's fascinating. It's that feeling where even when you put the phone down, the pull just lingers. You feel the phantom buzz of a missed notification in your pocket.
Or just the anxiety of what if something happened in the last 5 minutes? It's like the brain is still anticipating the next alert.
It is. The dopamine loop hasn't closed. It makes it incredibly hard to disconnect because your brain is still in receiving mode.
Okay, so let's recap. We have a brain wired for danger, an algorithm feeding us that danger, a body that's stressed out and sleep-deprived, and a phantom phone haunting us when we try to stop.
It sounds pretty bleak when you stack it all up like that.
It does. But this is where we pivot. Because thankfully, Nietzsche didn't just write this to make us all depressed.
Yeah.
The whole point is the how to avoid it part.
Yes, and that's important. The source emphasizes that the solution isn't to throw your phone in a river.
Which is good, because I need my GPS. And I like ordering food.
It's all about small, intentional changes. You don't have to go off the grid. You just have to break the automatic habits, retrain the brain.
So let's get into the strategy. The article outlines 5 specific ways to do this. The first one is simple, but man, it is hard. Schedule your scrolls.
This is about moving from impulsive checking to intentional checking. The core idea is to pick specific times to check the news instead of letting it bleed into every spare moment.
So like, I'll check world events at 8:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m., and that's it.
Exactly. And if you feel that urge at 11 a.m., you tell yourself, nope, got an appointment for that later. It gives you permission to disconnect.
And the article has a really critical tactic here. Don't do it first thing in the morning or right before bed.
That is the automatic reach. So many of us wake up, turn off the alarm, and immediately open social media. Before we've even brushed our teeth, we've flooded our brains with global tragedy.
You're starting your day with cortisol instead of coffee.
Exactly. If you can break that one cycle, reaching for the phone before your eyes are fully open, you disrupt the whole loop. You start the day on your terms.
I love that. Okay, strategy number 2. Shape your feed. This is like a diet for your brain.
It really is. You know, if you eat junk food all day, you feel sick. If you consume panic all day, you feel anxious. The advice is to be ruthless with your follow list.
Which is empowering, actually. You are the editor-in-chief of your own newspaper.
You are. Follow accounts you actually enjoy, hobbies, comedy, science, and mute the sensationalist ones. Intentionally mix in uplifting stories to balance out the negative.
You have to curate your own reality a bit because the internet's default setting is chaos.
It is. It's taking responsibility for the input. If you don't shape your feed, the algorithm will, and it will choose chaos.
Okay, strategy 3 is one I think we're all guilty of. Skip the clickbait.
This connects right back to the amygdala. Headlines are designed to grab attention, not provide nuance. They are written specifically to trigger that threat response.
You won't believe what disaster is coming next.
Exactly. And then the article itself is usually much more measured. So the advice is to actually read the article, dig in. The reality is almost always less terrifying than the headline.
It forces you to process the information instead of just reacting on autopilot.
It slows you down. Doom scrolling is fast. Reading is slow. If you make yourself read the whole thing, you break that rapid fire scroll. You engage your rational brain.
Slow down, read, and process. Okay, strategy 4 is maybe the coolest one. Trim digital temptations.
This gets into your phone settings. Turning off notifications is the obvious one, but the source has a visual hack that I find really interesting. Switch your phone to grayscale mode.
Make the screen black and white.
It sounds so simple, but it's powerful. These apps are designed with color psychology. They use bright red badges and colorful icons to stimulate the brain, to trigger dopamine.
It's like a slot machine. The flashing lights are part of the hook.
Exactly. When you strip the color away, the phone becomes, well, boring. It becomes a tool again, not a toy.
I've tried this. It's amazing how unappealing Instagram is in black and white. You just look at it and go, who cares?
That A reaction is what you want. It lowers the stimulation level.
Finally, strategy number 5. Shape your space.
This is about physical boundaries. Keep the phone out of reach during key times. Meals, work, and especially sleep.
This goes back to the second limb thing. If it's attached to you, you'll use it.
Right. Put it in a drawer. Put it in another room. The goal is to prevent that compulsive checking. If you have to physically get up and walk down the hall to check the news, you probably won't do it every 3 minutes.
You're adding friction to the bad habit.
Friction is your friend here. Make the bad habit hard and the good habit easy. If the phone is on your nightstand, you will check it. If it's charging in the kitchen, you will sleep.
So to recap the toolkit, schedule your time, curate your feed, read the full story, turn the screen grayscale, and physically move the phone away.
That's a solid battle plan, and I think the core message here is that the goal isn't to be ignorant. The goal is to make scrolling intentional instead of stressful.
That distinction is huge. Intentional versus stressful.
It is. It's about giving your mind a chance to recover. You can be informed without being hooked up to an IV drip of cortisol 24/7.
I think that's the key takeaway. We've looked at the biology, our inner caveman scared of tigers. We've looked at the loop designed to keep us clicking, and now we've looked at the way out.
It really highlights that we're in a battle for our own attention. And for many of us, that negativity bias that kept us alive for thousands of years is now the very thing making us miserable.
It's a bit of an evolutionary mismatch. We're running ancient software on modern hardware.
We are. But understanding the anxiety is just a biological tripwire and not necessarily a reflection of reality, that's the first step to disarming it.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on. We talked about how the brain treats a terrifying headline the same way it treats a predator in the wild.
Right, the tiger in the bushes.
So here's the question. If we are constantly feeding our brains these digital tigers, are we voluntarily choosing to live in a state of artificial danger? And if you were to turn off that danger feed for just 1 week, do you think you might discover that the world isn't quite as dark as the algorithm wants you to believe?